Han Jiwoo sat in the front row of his advanced mathematics class aboard Kepler station. At 8 years old, he was the youngest student in the room, surrounded by alien children who were much older but learning the same concepts, the boy's dark eyes focused on the holographic equations floating in the air before. Instructor Vex single quotes TARAN. The Zelthian teacher stood 3 meters tall, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the classroom lights. 4 arms moved gracefully as he manipulated the mathematical formulas, explaining complex theories to his mixed-species class. Jiwoo raised his small hand. "Yes, human child." Vextaran's voice carried the typical dismissive tone most aliens used when addressing humans. To them, humans were newcomers to the galaxy, barely worth attention. "Sir, there's a simpler way to solve this equation," Jiwoo said politely. "On Earth, we use a different method that takes fewer steps." The classroom fell silent. 23 pairs of alien eyes turned to look at the small human boy. Some species had large compound eyes, others had eye stalks, but all showed the same expression of surprise. No one questioned Instructor Vexed Aran. The Zelthian's 4 eyes narrowed. "Human mathematics are primitive," he said coldly. "We have been solving equations for thousands of years before your species discovered fire." "But sir," Jiwoo continued, his voice still respectful, "the answer is the same, but this way is faster." He stood up and walked to the holographic display. His small fingers moved through the light, rearranging the symbols. "See? If you move this variable here and combine these 2 steps." The equation solved itself in half the time. The alien students gasped. Even they could see that the human child had found a better method. Vextaran's scales darkened with anger. For centuries, his people had taught mathematics to younger species. Now, an 8-year-old human was making him look foolish. "Sit down," Vextaran commanded, his voice dangerous. "But sir, wouldn't you want to know about other Earth mathematical methods?" "We have many different ways to—" The strike came without warning. Vextaran's primary arm swung down, his scaled hand hitting Jiwoo across the face with tremendous force. The small boy flew sideways, his body hitting the metal wall with a sickening thud. He crumpled to the floor, blood running from his nose and mouth. The classroom erupted in chaos. Alien students screamed in their various languages. Some had never seen violence before. Their peaceful worlds had no concept of striking a child. Kim Nari burst through the classroom door. She had been monitoring the lesson from the hallway, as all human guardians did when their children attended mixed classes. The moment she saw Jiwoo on the floor, her training kicked in. Before joining the diplomatic mission, she had been a sergeant. In Earth's Defense Force, every muscle in her body wanted to attack Vextaran. Her hands formed fists. Her breathing became controlled and steady. She could kill the alien instructor in 12 different ways before he could react. But she stopped herself. Starting a war would not help Jiwoo. Instead, she knelt beside the unconscious boy. Her fingers checked his pulse, examined his injuries with medical precision. Broken cheekbone, possible concussion, internal bleeding in his mouth. The alien had hit a child with enough force to seriously injure him. "Medical team to classroom 7, she spoke into her communication device, her voice deadly calm. "Child down, serious injuries." Vextaran towered over her, showing no remorse. The human child was disrespectful. Discipline was necessary. Kim Nari looked up at him. For just a moment, Vextaran saw something in her eyes that made his scales ripple with instinctive fear. It was the look of a predator deciding whether to kill. "You hit a child?" she said simply. "I corrected a student's behavior," Vextaran replied. "This is standard practice in civilized education." The medical team arrived quickly. They were a mix of species, but all professionals. They worked on Jiwoo with careful precision, stabilizing him before transporting him to the station's medical bay. Kim Nari followed, never leaving the boy's side. Within an hour, news of the incident had spread throughout Kepler Station. The security cameras had recorded everything. Station Administrator Krell, another Zelthian, reviewed the footage with his staff. The instructor was maintaining classroom discipline, Krell announced to his mixed-species staff. The human child was being disruptive. Dr. Yuan Minkin, the only other human in the room, watched the footage again. He struck an 8-year-old child with enough force to cause serious injury. The child questioned a teacher's authority. Krell replied, "In civilized society, such behavior must be corrected. In human society, adults who strike children are criminals," Dr. Yuan said coldly. Krell's scales shifted color, showing his dismissal. "Humans are emotional creatures. You see violence where we see education." Dr. Yuan said nothing more, but he immediately sent a message to Earth. The footage would reach human authorities within 6 hours. In the medical bay, Jiwoo woke up slowly. His head felt like it was splitting apart. His face was swollen and painful. Kim Nari sat beside his bed holding his hand. "Teacher Nari?" he whispered. "I'm here, Jiwoo," she said softly. "You're safe now? Did I do something wrong?" the boy asked. "I was just trying to help." Kim Nari felt her heart break. "No, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong. You were being helpful and smart, just like always. Why did he hit me so hard?" Kim. Nari had no good answer for that question. How could she explain to a child that some beings saw violence as an acceptable response to being shown a better way? Han Minho arrived 20 minutes later. Guo's father was Earth's diplomatic representative to the Galactic Education Council. He was a patient man who believed in peaceful solutions and cross-species cooperation. But when he saw his son's battered face, something cold and hard settled in his chest. "Who did this?" he asked quietly. "Instructor Vextaran," Kim Nari replied. He hit Jiwoo for suggesting a different mathematical method. Han Minho was silent for a long moment. Then he activated his communication device. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," he said. "Priority Alpha clearance." The call connected to Admiral Park Sunjin's office on Earth. The Admiral was in a meeting when his aide interrupted with news of an emergency. "Transmission from Kepler Station." "Admiral," Han Minho said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "My son has been assaulted by an alien instructor. The local authorities are calling it standard discipline. I'm sending you the security footage now." Admiral Park watched the recording 3 times. Each viewing made his expression darker. When it finished, he was quiet for several minutes. "How is the boy?" he finally asked. "Concussion, broken cheekbone, internal injuries. He'll recover physically." "And politically?" "The Zelfians are refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. They're treating this as a minor disciplinary action." Admiral Park stood up and walked to his office window. He could see Earth's orbital defense platforms in the distance, bristling with weapons. "Han Minho, get your son the best medical care available. Document everything. I want a complete report within 12 hours. And then? Then we remind the galaxy why humans are called deathworlders." The call ended. Admiral Park immediately contacted President Choi Dong-wook, Director Lee Haijin of Intelligence, and the commanders of all 12 Earth fleets. Within 2 hours, every human military installation in the galaxy was on high alert. On Kepler Station, Jiwoo fell asleep holding his father's hand. He was just a small boy who had wanted to share knowledge with his classmates. He had no idea that his simple act of trying to help would soon shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The footage of his assault was already spreading across human networks. Soon it would reach every human colony, every Earth ship, every place where humans had built new homes among the stars, and humanity would respond as they always did when their children were threatened. The footage reached Earth at 3:47 a.m. Greenwich Standard Time. By 4:15 a.m., it was on every news network across the planet. By 5 a.m., it had spread to every human colony in the galaxy. By dawn, over 6 billion humans had watched an alien strike down an 8-year-old boy for trying to help his classmates. Director Lee Haijin sat in the emergency session of Earth's Planetary Council. The room was filled with representatives from every nation, every major corporation, and every military branch. For the first time in decades, humanity spoke with one voice. "The boy's injuries are severe but not life-threatening," reported Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's Chief Medical Officer for Off-World Affairs. Broken cheekbone, grade 2 concussion, internal bleeding in the mouth. He'll need surgery to repair the facial damage. President Choi Dong-wook leaned forward. What's the political situation? The Zelthians are calling it a cultural misunderstanding, Lee Haijin replied, her voice cold. Station Administrator Krell says that Instructor Vextarin was maintaining proper classroom discipline. They refuse to acknowledge any wrongdoing. They hit a child, said General Park Sung-jin. A child who was trying to help, and they call it discipline? It gets worse, Lee Haijin continued. Our intelligence network has uncovered similar incidents at 17 other facilities. Human children have been subjected to what aliens call behavioral correction for years. We just never had proof before. The room erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted in dozen languages, but their message was the same. The aliens had been hurting human children, and the galactic authorities didn't care. President Choi raised his hand for silence. Admiral Park? What's our military status? Admiral Park Sung-jin stood up. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes. He had commanded Earth's space forces for 12 years, always hoping they would never be needed for war. All 12 fleet groups are ready for deployment, he reported. The new ships finished construction last month. We have 312 capital ships, 1,847 support vessels, and 45,000 fighter craft. Every ship has a human crew trained for deep space combat. How long to reach Kepler Station? 18 days at maximum burn. Director Lee Haijin activated a holographic display showing the galactic map. Red dots marked human colonies and facilities. Blue dots showed alien military installations. The Galactic Council meets in emergency session tomorrow, she said. They're deeply concerned about what they call human overreaction to the incident. Overreaction. President Choi's voice was dangerous. They assault our children and call our anger an overreaction? The galaxy sees us as newcomers, Lee Haijin explained. We've only been in space for 400 years. Most alien civilizations are thousands of years old. They think we're primitive and emotional. Maybe it's time to show them how primitive deathworlders can be, Admiral Park said quietly. The president was silent for several minutes. Everyone in the room knew this decision would change everything. Once Earth's fleets moved, there would be no going back. Send an ultimatum to the Galactic Council, President Choi finally said. 72 hours to meet our demands. What demands? Asked Foreign Minister Lim Seo-jin. First, immediate arrest and extradition of Vextarin for trial on Earth. Second, formal apology from the Zelthian government. Third, compensation for all human children who have been harmed. Fourth, new protocols to protect human children in all galactic facilities. And if they refuse? Admiral Park asked. President Choi looked around the room. Every face showed the same expression of cold determination. Then we teach the galaxy why humans survived on a death world. The ultimatum was delivered to the Galactic Council 6 hours later. The response came back in 30 minutes. The Galactic Council does not negotiate with emotional species. The incident at Kepler Station was a minor disciplinary action that has been blown out of proportion by human aggression. No action will be taken. On Kepler Station, Hajua was awake and talking to his father. The boy's face was still swollen, but the doctors said he would heal completely. Why did he hit me, Dad? Jiwoo asked. Han Minho sat on the edge of the medical bed. How do you explain hatred to an 8-year-old? Some people don't like it when others show them a better way of doing things, he said carefully. But I was just trying to help. Math is supposed to be fun. I know, son. You did nothing wrong. Kim Nari entered the room carrying a datapad. Her face was grim. The Galactic Council rejected our ultimatum, she told Han Minho quietly. He nodded. He had expected this. How long until our ships arrive? 18 days. But Admiral Park is sending advance scouts ahead. Captain Lim Seok-jin's squadron will be here in 12 days. Han Min-ho looked at his injured son. The boy was drawing pictures on a tablet, trying to stay busy while his body healed. He had no idea that his assault had triggered the largest military mobilization in human history. Will there be fighting? Kim Nari asked. Probably. The aliens think we're all emotion and no strategy. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Across the galaxy, human colonies were receiving new orders. Military reserves were being activated. Civilian ships were being converted to support roles. For the first time since the colony wars 2 centuries ago, humanity was preparing for large-scale warfare. Captain Yang Mirei received her orders while commanding a patrol squadron near the Vega system. Her ships were to proceed immediately to rendezvous with Admiral Park's main fleet. As her crew prepared for hyperspace jump, she studied the footage of Jiwu's assault one more time. "Captain," her first officer said, "the crew is asking about our mission parameters." "Tell them we're going to get a little boy justice," she replied. "And we're going to make sure no alien ever hurts a human child again." The crew of her flagship, the destroyer Soul's Pride, had all seen the footage. Every human in the galaxy had seen it by now. The image of a small boy being struck down by an alien 3 times his size had burned itself into human consciousness. On Earth, factories that had been producing civilian goods were quickly retooling for military production. The great shipyards of Luna were working around the clock, finishing the last of the new Dreadnought-class vessels. Every human world was contributing whatever they could to the effort. Dr. Ru Taeyun worked frantically in his xenobiology lab, preparing psychological profiles of every known alien species. If humanity was going to war, they needed to understand their enemies' weaknesses. Most galactic species evolved on peaceful worlds, he explained to Admiral Park via video link. They've never faced true predators? Earth's constant wars, natural disasters, and dangerous wildlife made us different. We're the only species in the galaxy that evolved from prey animals that learned to become hunters. What does that mean for combat? Admiral Park asked. It means they don't understand warfare the way we do. They think in terms of honor and formal challenges. We think in terms of survival and winning at any cost. Admiral Park smiled grimly. Then they're in for a surprise. The 72-hour ultimatum expired at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. The Galactic Council's final response was dismissive. Humans will calm down when they realize their emotional reaction is inappropriate. No further action is required. President Choi Dong-wook stood before the cameras to address not just Earth, but every human colony in the galaxy. My fellow humans, he began, for 400 years we have tried to be good neighbors to the galaxy. We have followed their rules, respected their customs, and tried to fit into their version of civilization. But today that ends. He paused, letting his words sink in. An alien instructor struck down an 8-year-old boy for the crime of being helpful. The galactic authorities call this proper discipline. They refuse to acknowledge any wrongdoing. They dismiss our justified anger as emotional overreaction. His voice grew harder. They forget that humans come from Earth. They forget that we survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and countless wars. They forget that we are the children of a death world. Today we remind them, he looked directly into the camera, to every human child in the galaxy, we are coming for you. To every alien who thinks they can harm our children, learn why deathworlders are feared. The broadcast ended. Within hours, every human military unit in the galaxy was moving toward their assigned targets. The largest fleet in human history was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would not be forgotten. On Kepler Station, little Jiwoo fell asleep holding his father's hand, unaware that his simple act of kindness in a classroom had just started a war. Admiral Park Sung-jin stood on the bridge of the EDS Terra's Wrath, watching the largest fleet in human history prepare for departure. 12 massive dreadnoughts hung in space around Earth, each one 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that no alien had ever seen in action. Fleet status report, he commanded. All ships ready for hyperspace jump, Admiral, reported Captain Lim Seok-shane from the bridge of the EDS Vengeance. The second fleet reports ready. Third fleet standing. By Park looked at the tactical display. 312 capital ships, over 1,800 support vessels, and 45,000 fighter craft. It was more military power than humanity had ever assembled in one place. Begin Operation Deathworld, he ordered, the space. Around Earth filled with brilliant flashes as the fleet jumped to hyperspace. Alien observers at the edge of the solar system watched in shock. They had never seen so many ships move together with such precision. Commander Baywujin monitored communications from his intelligence ship. Admiral, we're intercepting alien chatter across 17 sectors. They're calling emergency sessions, activating defense fleets, sending warnings about human aggression. Let them talk, Admiral Park replied. How long until we reach the first checkpoint? 16 hours to the Rigel waypoint. Captain Yang's advanced squadron should already be engaging any Zelthian forces there, the Admiral nodded. The plan was simple but effective. Human forces would strike multiple targets simultaneously, overwhelming alien defenses before they could coordinate a response. It was a strategy born from Earth's long history of warfare. At the Rigel checkpoint, Captain Yang Mireille watched her tactical display. As enemy ships appeared on her sensors, the Zelthian defense fleet had arrived first, trying to block human access to the inner systems. 15 ships, Captain, her tactical officer reported. Looks like their standard patrol formation. Yang studied the alien vessels. They were larger than her destroyers, but built for show as much as function. Pretty ships designed by a species that had never faced real combat. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Attack formation Delta, target their command ship first. The human ships spread out in a pattern that confused the aliens. Most galactic species fought in neat lines, following ancient traditions of honor and formal combat. Humans fought to win. The battle lasted exactly 47 minutes. Human ships moved like a pack of predators, coordinating their attacks with deadly precision. Their weapons were designed by a species that had been killing each other for thousands of years. The aliens had nothing that could match them. Last enemy ship is surrendering, Captain, the communications officer reported. Yang looked at her damage reports. 3 human ships had minor hull damage, no casualties. The alien fleet was either destroyed or captured. Send a message to Admiral Park, she ordered. Rigel checkpoint secured, no human losses. News of the battle spread quickly through alien communication networks. For the first time in galactic history, a human fleet had destroyed a major alien military force without taking significant casualties. On the bridge of Terra's Wrath, Admiral Park received the report with satisfaction. The aliens are about to learn what Deathworld tactics really mean. Dr. Ru Taiyan stood beside the Admiral, watching the tactical displays. The psychological impact will be significant, he said. Most alien species have never seen total military defeat. They don't understand how we fight. Explain. Galactic warfare is usually formal and limited. Ships fight in formation, follow rules of engagement, accept surrender gracefully. We fight like Earth predators. We attack weak points, use superior numbers, and don't stop until the threat is eliminated. Admiral Park smiled grimly. They wanted to hurt our children. Now they get to see what happens when you threaten a predator's young. On Kepler Station, Station Administrator Krell watched the news reports with growing alarm. Human ships were moving through multiple sectors, destroying any alien forces that tried to stop them. The speed and efficiency of their attacks was terrifying. Sir, his aide said nervously, we're receiving reports that a human fleet is heading directly for this station. Krell's scales rippled with fear. How many ships? Long-range sensors show at least 50 vessels, including several of their largest dreadnoughts. Krell activated his communication system, trying to contact the Galactic Council. This is Station. Administrator Krell requesting immediate military support. Human forces are approaching Kepler Station. The response was not encouraging. All available forces are already engaged. You are ordered to defend the station with your own resources. Krell looked at his defense options. Kepler Station had 12 armed vessels and a small defense grid. They were designed to handle pirates and minor threats. Not a full military assault. In the station's medical bay, Hanjiwo was recovering well from his injuries. The swelling on his face was going down, and the doctor said he would be able to leave the medical facility soon. Dad, he said to his father. Teacher Nari says ships are coming from Earth. Are they coming to help me? Han Minho sat beside his son's bed. Yes, Jiwoo, Earth is sending ships to make sure you're safe. Will they arrest the teacher who hit me? I think so, son. Kim Nari entered the room carrying new reports. The lead elements of Admiral Park's fleet just dropped out of hyperspace, she told Han Minho quietly. Captain Lin's dreadnought is requesting permission to dock, Han Minho nodded. Tell them they have full diplomatic immunity. I want Vextaran arrested the moment human forces take control of this station. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human fleets were arriving at every facility where human children were present. The response was swift, coordinated, and overwhelming. Alien defenders found themselves facing military tactics they had never seen before. Major Song Arium led her fighter squadron through the defense grid of Proxima Station. The alien defenders tried to form orderly lines, following their traditional combat formations. Her pilots scattered in all directions, attacking from unexpected angles. Remember, she called over the comm system, we're not here to destroy the station. We're here to secure the human children inside. Precision strikes only. Her fighters moved like deadly insects, stinging at weak points in the alien defenses. Within 20 minutes, the station's weapons were offline and her marines were docking with the main airlock. Sergeant Nam Kyung-soo was among the first marines to board an alien facility. His squad moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, checking every room for human children. Contact, his point man reported. 10 human children, ages 6 to 14. They appear unharmed but scared. Nam activated his suit's external speakers. Children, I'm Sergeant Nam from Earth Defense Force. We're here to take you home. A 12-year-old girl stepped forward. Are you really from Earth? Yes, miss. We came as soon as we heard what happened to Jawo on Kepler Station. The children began to cry with relief. Some had been away from human contact for months, trying to fit into alien educational systems that didn't understand human needs. We're going to get you medical checkups and then take you somewhere safe, Nam promised. No one will hurt you anymore. Similar rescues were happening across dozens of worlds. Human special forces were extracting their children from facilities where they had been mistreated, ignored, or worse. Each rescue team carried detailed orders: secure the children first, gather evidence of mistreatment second, arrest those responsible third. The evidence they found was worse than anyone had expected. Human children had been subjected to behavioral modification techniques that would be considered torture on Earth. Alien educators had been trying to break human instincts, to make them more compliant and less primitive. Commander Baywoojan compiled the reports from across the galaxy. Admiral, we're finding systematic abuse at 43 facilities. The aliens have been treating our children like animals that need to be trained. Admiral Park's expression grew darker as he read the reports. How many children? Over 800 human children in various stages of what the aliens call civilizing process. Some have been away from human contact for years. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Park. New intelligence shows that the assault on Hanjiwoo was not an isolated incident. Our children have been systematically abused across the galaxy. Mission parameters are now expanded. We will secure every human child, arrest every responsible party, and ensure this never happens again. The fleet's response was immediate. Human ships that had been moving with military precision now moved with something more dangerous: the fury of parents protecting their young on Kepler Station. Captain Lim Seok-jin's dreadnought had taken position directly above the facility. The massive ship blocked out the stars, a clear message to everyone aboard the station. Station Administrator Krell, Captain Lim's voice came over the communication system. You have 30 minutes to surrender Instructor Vextaran and all records related to human students. Comply, and this will remain peaceful. Krell looked at his pathetic defenses compared to the massive human warship above. He had heard the reports from other stations. Human forces were taking what they wanted, and resistance only made things Worse for the aliens involved. We comply with your demands, he transmitted back. 20-8 minute. The Galactic Council meeting on Centauri Prime was in chaos. Representatives from 47 species shouted at each other in dozens of languages, but they all had the same message: the humans had to be stopped. They've destroyed 3 defense fleets in 2 days, announced Ambassador Krell of the Zelthians, his scales pale with fear. Their ships appear from nowhere, attack with weapons we've never seen, and disappear before we can respond. 17 educational facilities have been seized, added Representative Toth of the Vegan Confederation. They're taking children and arresting our staff members. Chancellor Vrix of the Hegemony Council stood at the center of the Great Chamber. His species had ruled the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and he had never seen such disorder. "Order!" he commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are civilized beings. Surely we can handle one aggressive species." "You don't understand," said Ambassador Krell. "These aren't normal attacks. The humans fight like animals. They have no honor, no rules of engagement. They simply destroy everything that opposes them." "They're primitives from a death world," Chancellor Vrix replied dismissively. "How dangerous can they be?" On the tactical display at the front of the chamber, red markers showed human fleet positions. The markers were spreading across the galaxy like a disease, moving faster than any alien force had ever moved. "Sir, a communication." Technician interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander." "Put it through," Vrix ordered. Admiral Park Sunjan's image appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the bridge of Terra's Wrath showed human officers working with calm efficiency. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," Admiral Park began, his voice polite but cold. "I am Admiral Park Sunjan of the Earth Defense Forces. You have 72 hours to meet our revised demands. You dare make demands of this council?" Chancellor Vrix snapped. "I don't make demands," Admiral Park replied. "Calmly, I make statements of fact. In 72 hours, if our requirements are not met, we will demonstrate why humans are the only species to survive on a Class 12 death world." The chamber fell silent. Class the 12th was the highest rating for planetary danger. Most species in the galaxy came from Class 1 or 2 worlds, peaceful planets with gentle weather and few predators. "What are your requirements?" Vrix asked reluctantly. "First, immediate ceasefire and withdrawal of all alien military forces currently engaging human ships. Second, formal apology from every government whose citizens have harmed human children. Third, complete medical and psychological care for all affected human children. Fourth, establishment of human oversight committees at every mixed species facility. Fifth, payment of reparations in the amount of 500 billion galactic credits." The council chamber erupted in angry voices again. 500 billion. Credits was more money than some species had in their entire treasuries. "These demands are outrageous," shouted Representative Toth. "They are non-negotiable," Admiral Park replied. "You hurt our children. Now you pay the price." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. 3 systems away, Captain Yang Mirai was leading her squadron through the Altair system when they encountered the largest alien fleet assembled since the Hegemony Wars. Sensors show 137 ships, her tactical officer reported. "Looks like they pulled vessels from 6 different fleets." Yang studied the formation. The aliens had learned from their earlier defeats and were trying to use superior numbers, but they were still thinking like aliens, not like humans. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Attack pattern Omega. Target their command vessels first, then break their formations." The human ships moved like a swarm of deadly insects. While the aliens maintained their orderly lines, human vessels attacked from above, below, and from unexpected angles. Their weapons targeted specific systems rather than trying to destroy ships completely. Within an hour, the alien fleet was scattered and helpless. Half their ships were dead in space, their engines and weapons offline. The other half were fleeing in panic. "Captain," her communications officer called, "we're receiving surrender signals from 37 enemy vessels." Accept their surrender, Yang ordered. Send boarding parties to secure their crews. I want to know everything about their fleet. Deployments. The intelligence gathered from captured alien ships was revealing. The aliens were trying to coordinate their defenses, but they had no experience fighting an enemy like humanity. Their tactics were thousands of years old, designed for formal warfare between civilized species. Commander Bei Wujin analyzed the captured data from his intelligence ship. Admiral, the aliens are planning a massive counterattack at Volf 359. They're gathering ships from across the galaxy. How many? Admiral Park asked. Over 300 vessels. The largest fleet in galactic history. Admiral Park smiled grimly. Then we'll give them the largest defeat in galactic history. The Battle of Volf 359 became legendary among human military. Historians. When the alien fleet arrived at the star system, they found it apparently empty. Their sensors showed no human ships, no defensive positions, nothing. Where are they? Asked Fleet Commander Zex of the Altaria Navy. Probably fled when they saw our numbers, replied Admiral Korth of the vegan forces. These humans are cowards. When faced with real opposition, they were wrong. The human fleet was there, but using stealth technology the aliens had never seen. Human ships hung in the shadow of asteroids, their energy signatures masked by sophisticated electronic warfare systems. All units, Admiral Park transmitted on a tightly focused beam, begin Operation Death Strike. The attack came from everywhere. At once, human ships appeared as if by magic, striking at the alien fleet from 6 different directions. Their opening salvo destroyed the alien command. Ships before the enemy even knew they were under attack. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the largest fleet in galactic history was reduced to scattered wreckage and fleeing survivors. Human losses were minimal, 12 ships damaged. None destroyed? News of the Volf 359 battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Alien governments that had been preparing to fight the humans suddenly found themselves reconsidering their options. On Kepler Station, Hanjiwo was finally well enough to leave the medical bay. His father held his hand as they walked through the corridors, now patrolled by human marines. Dad, the boy said, why are there so many Earth ships here? They came to make sure you're safe, Han Minho replied. Just for me? Han Minho knelt down to his son's level. Jiwoo, when someone hurts a human child, all of humanity responds. We protect our young, no matter what. The boy nodded solemnly. Even at 8 years old, he was beginning to understand that his simple act of trying to help in class had triggered something much larger. Kim. Nari joined them in the corridor. The Admiral wants to meet Jiwoo, she said to Han Minho. They made their way to the docking bay where Admiral Park's shuttle had just arrived. The Admiral was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes, but Jiwoo could see the steel underneath. So you're the young man who started all this, Admiral Park said gently, kneeling down to Jiwoo's level. I'm sorry, Jiwoo said quietly. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Son, Admiral Park said firmly, you did nothing wrong. You were being helpful and smart. It's the adults who failed you. Are you going to arrest the teacher who hit me? Already done. He's in custody aboard one of our ships. He'll face trial on Earth for assault on a minor? Jiwoo nodded. Will other kids be safe now? Admiral Park smiled. That's what we're working on. No alien will ever hurt a human child again. I promise you that. The Admiral stood and activated his communication device. All ship commanders, this is Admiral Park. Phase 1 of the operation is complete. All human children are secure. Phase 2 begins now. We make sure this never happens again. Across the galaxy, human forces were consolidating their positions. They held key systems, had destroyed or scattered alien fleets, and controlled the narrative of the conflict. Most importantly, they had rescued over 800 human children from facilities where they had been mistreated, but the humans weren't finished. As Admiral Park had said, Phase 2 was just beginning. And Phase 2 would teach the galaxy a lesson about the consequences of threatening a deathworld species. Young Dr. Ru Tae-yun was working around the clock, analyzing psychological profiles of captured alien personnel. What he found was disturbing, but useful. Admiral, he reported, the systematic mistreatment of human children wasn't random. It was planned policy. They've been trying to break human instincts for decades. Break our instincts? They see human traits, curiosity, innovation, aggression, protective instincts, as primitive behaviors that need to be corrected. They've been trying to make our children more like their own species. Admiral Park was quiet for a moment. Then they really don't understand what they've done. No, sir. They attacked the most important thing to a human, our children, and they did it systematically, with planning and intent. Admiral Park's expression grew cold. Then they're going to learn exactly what happens when you declare war on a species that evolved by surviving everything a deathworld could throw at them. The 72-hour deadline was approaching. Across the galaxy, alien governments were frantically debating whether to meet human demands or try to fight back. They were learning that. The 72-hour deadline expired with the same result as before. The Galactic Council rejected humanity's demands. Chancellor Vrix broadcast his response across the galaxy with the arrogance of a species that had ruled for 2 millennia. The Galactic Council does not bow to threats from primitive species, his message declared. Humans will learn their place in civilized society or face the consequences. Admiral Park Sung-jin received the message aboard Terra's Wrath while reviewing battle plans with his senior staff. Captain Lim Seok-jin, Major Song Aryam, and Colonel Yang Mary waited for his response. Phase 3 begins now, Admiral Park said calmly. They want to see what primitives can do. Let's show them. He turned to the holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked alien military installations, government centers, and economic hubs. Blue dots showed human fleet positions. Target Priority 1, their military infrastructure. Priority 2, government facilities. Priority 3, economic centers. Rules of engagement. Avoid civilian casualties, but everything else is fair game. Colonel Yang studied the tactical display. Admiral, this will effectively cripple their ability to govern or defend themselves. That's the point, Colonel. They hurt our children and called it civilization. Time to show them what real civilization looks like. The attack began simultaneously across 47 star systems. Human forces that had been waiting in hidden positions revealed themselves and struck with overwhelming force. The aliens had never seen anything like it. On Vega Prime, Major Song Aryam led her fighter squadrons against the planet's orbital defense grid. The vegan defenders tried to maintain formation, following their ancient combat protocols. Target their command satellites first, she ordered. Once their communications are down, they can't coordinate a defense. Her pilots moved like a pack of predators, hitting weak points in the alien defensive network. Within 2 hours, Vega Prime's entire military command structure was offline. Similar attacks were happening across the galaxy. Human forces demonstrated tactics that no alien species had ever seen: asymmetric warfare, electronic warfare, psychological operations, and coordinated multi-system strikes. Captain Kang Jisu commanded the assault on Altair Prime's fleet yards. The massive facility produced warships for 6 different alien species. It was heavily defended and considered impregnable. Sir, his tactical officer reported, they have over 200 defense platforms and 50 patrol ships. Standard alien tactics, Kong replied. They'll try to fight us ship to ship. Show them how Deathworlders handle superior numbers. Instead of engaging the alien defenses directly, Kang's fleet deployed thousands of small drones. Each drone was barely larger than a fighter, but carried enough explosives to cripple a large ship. The aliens had no experience fighting swarm tactics. The defense platforms tried to target individual drones, but there were too many. While they focused on the small threats, human capital ships moved into position and struck the facility's main power cores. Altair Prime fleet yards are offline, Admiral, Kong reported to Admiral Park. We've captured the facility intact and arrested the senior staff. Casualties? No human losses. The aliens are surrendering faster than we can process them. This was happening everywhere. Alien forces that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were collapsing in the face of human military tactics. The Deathworld species was demonstrating why they were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Dr. Ru Tae-yun monitored alien communications from his intelligence ship. The psychological impact was exactly what he had predicted. "Admiral," he reported, "we're intercepting panic communications across 17 sectors. Alien governments are calling emergency sessions, requesting ceasefires, offering to negotiate. Any word from the Galactic Council? Chancellor Vrix is demanding an immediate meeting with you." Significantly less arrogant than he was 3 days ago. Admiral Park smiled grimly. "Tell him I'll meet with him aboard Kepler Station, in the presence of Han Ji-woo. Sir, the boy who started this should see how it ends. On Kepler Station, preparations were being made for the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Human Marines had converted the main assembly hall into a secure conference room. Han Ji-woo sat beside his father, still recovering from his injuries, but insisting on being present. "Are you sure you want to be here, son?" Han Minho asked. "The Admiral said I should see this," Ji-woo replied. "He said it's important that the aliens understand what they did." Kim Nari sat nearby, watching the preparations with professional interest. She had traded her teacher's robes for a military uniform, revealing her true background as a combat veteran. 23 alien delegations are requesting to attend, she reported to Han Minho. They're all terrified. Admiral Park arrived with a full honor guard. Despite the military circumstances, he was dressed in formal diplomatic attire. This meeting would determine the future relationship between humanity and the galaxy. Chancellor Vrix entered the room flanked by representatives from every major alien government. The ancient leader, who had dismissed human demands just days before, now looked shaken and uncertain. "Admiral Park," Vrix began formally, "the Galactic Council is prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "There is no conflict, Admiral," Park replied calmly. "There is only justice. You hurt our children, we responded appropriately." He gestured to Ji-woo, who stood beside his father. The boy's face still showed bruises from Vextaran-S assault. This child was struck for trying to help his classmates. Your response was to dismiss it as proper discipline. Our response was to show you what happens when you threaten a Deathworld species young. Vrix looked at Ji-woo, really seeing him for the first time. Not as a primitive Deathworlder, but as a small child who had been hurt by an adult. We did not understand, Vrix said quietly. "No," Admiral Park agreed, "you didn't. You saw us as emotional primitives who overreacted to minor discipline. You never bothered to understand that humans are different because we come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history, ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, constant warfare between human tribes. "Every other species in this galaxy evolved on peaceful worlds," Admiral Park continued. "You've never faced real predators, never survived mass extinctions, never had to fight for every generation's survival. You think civilization means being gentle and orderly." The display shifted to show human military operations across the galaxy. "We learned civilization from a harsher teacher. On Earth, being civilized means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It means swift and terrible justice for those who hurt the innocent. It means that threats to our children bring immediate and overwhelming response." The alien representatives watched in silent horror as the display showed the complete destruction of their military forces. "You have two choices," Admiral Park said. "Accept our terms and learn to coexist with a Deathworld species that values its children above all else. Or continue to resist and discover what happens when Deathworlders decide you're a threat that must be eliminated." Chancellor Vrix was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked directly at Ji-woo. "Young human," he said formally, "I apologize for the harm done to you. Your people's response has taught us that we do not understand your species as well as we thought." Ji-woo looked up at his father, who nodded encouragingly. "I forgive you," the boy said quietly. "But you have to promise that no one will hurt other kids like me." I promise, Rix replied solemnly. Admiral Park stepped forward. The Galactic Council will sign the Terran Protection Accords. Human children will be protected by galactic law. Human oversight committees will monitor all mixed species facilities. Reparations will be paid to affected families. And any species that harms a human child in the future will face the full military might of Earth. And if we agree to these terms, Vrix asked, then we return to being peaceful neighbors. Earth has no desire to rule the galaxy. We just want our children safe. The negotiations took 6 hours. When they ended, the galaxy had a new understanding of humanity. The species from Earth wasn't just physically dangerous. They were strategically superior warriors who valued their young above everything else. The Terran Protection Accords were signed by all 47 galactic governments. Human children would never again face the systematic abuse they had endured for decades. More importantly, the galaxy now understood that threatening a deathworld species, children, was the fastest way to face extinction. As the alien delegations prepared to leave, Chancellor Vrix approached Admiral Park privately. Admiral, he said quietly, may I ask you something? Of course, if we had harmed the child more seriously. If we had killed him. Admiral Park's expression grew cold. Then, instead of capturing your military installations, we would have reduced them to radioactive debris. Instead of arresting your leaders, we would have hunted them across the galaxy. Instead of demanding reparations, we would have taken your worlds. Vrix shuddered. You would have committed genocide? We would have eliminated a threat to our species' survival, Admiral Park corrected. That's what Deathworlders do. As the meeting ended, Hanji Wu walked up to Admiral Park. Sir, the boy said, thank you for keeping your promise. What promise? You said no alien would ever. 6 months after the signing of the Terran Protection Accords, the galaxy was a very different place. Captain Lim Seok-jin walked through the corridors of New Geneva Station, the first human-administered facility for interspecies education, watching. Alien and human children learn together under very different rules. In Classroom 7, the same room number where Hanji Wu had been struck, a young Zelthian instructor named Kex Myron was teaching advanced physics to a mixed group of students. When a human girl named Lee So-min raised her hand to suggest an alternative solution, the instructor listened carefully and praised her innovative thinking. Excellent observation, So-min, Kex Myron said respectfully. Human mathematical approaches often show us new ways to solve old problems. Would you like to show the class your method? The change in attitude was dramatic. What had once been seen as primitive Deathworlder disruption was now recognized as innovative human problem-solving. Fear had taught the aliens what diplomacy had failed to accomplish. Captain Lim continued his inspection tour, noting the presence of human supervisors in every classroom. The Terran Oversight Committee had been established with unprecedented authority to monitor the treatment of human children across the galaxy. Captain, his aide reported, we have a situation developing in the Vega system. Local authorities are requesting human mediation for a dispute involving human colonists. This was becoming common. In the 6 months since humanity had demonstrated their military superiority, alien governments regularly requested human assistance with complex problems. The species that had once dismissed humans as emotional primitives now sought their strategic expertise. What kind of dispute? Lim asked. Terraforming rights on Vega 7. 3 alien corporations are claiming conflicting territorial claims. The human colonists are caught in the middle, Lim nodded. Send the message to Admiral Park. This sounds like a job for the diplomatic corps. On Earth, Admiral Park Sung-jin had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense, a position that didn't exist before humanity's military demonstration. He reviewed reports from across the galaxy while preparing for another day of managing humanity's new role. Sir, Director Lee Haijin entered his office carrying data pads. We're receiving cooperation requests from 17 different sectors. This week, the aliens want human strategic advice on everything from trade disputes to defensive planning. Any military threats? None. After Volf 359, no alien species is willing to challenge human forces directly. We've achieved complete strategic dominance without having to fire another shot. Admiral Park walked to his office window, looking out at Earth's expanded orbital facilities. New shipyards were under construction, not for war but for exploration and colonization. Humanity was finally free to expand across the galaxy without fear of alien interference. "What about the war crimes trials?" he asked, proceeding smoothly. "Vestan was sentenced to 20 years in a human penal facility. 43 other alien educators and administrators have been convicted of child abuse. The sentences are being carried out according to human legal standards." "Good. What about compensation for the families?" "All 500 billion credits have been distributed. Most families are using the money to relocate to human-controlled worlds or establish private schools. The transformation had been remarkable. In just 6 months, humanity had gone from being tolerated newcomers to being the dominant military and political force in the galaxy. Not through conquest, but through demonstrating that threatening their children brought swift and overwhelming consequences. On Kepler Station, Hanjiwo was back in school, but under very different circumstances. His new teacher was Ms. Park Ji-young, a human educator who specialized in gifted children. The classroom was smaller, filled only with human children whose families had chosen to remain in mixed-species facilities. "Today we're going to study galactic history," Ms. Park announced. "Specifically, how the Terran Protection Accords changed interspecies relations." Jiwoo raised his hand. "Miss Park, why do the alien teachers act so different now?" "What do you mean, Jiwoo?" "Before, they always seemed annoyed when I asked questions. Now they seem scared." Miss Park chose her words carefully. "When you were hurt, Jiwoo, it taught the aliens something important about humans. They learned that we protect our children above everything else. Now they're more careful to treat human children with respect. Because they're afraid of getting in trouble? Because they understand that hurting human children has consequences they're not prepared to face." The boy nodded thoughtfully. Even at 8 years old, he was beginning to understand the larger implications of what had happened to him. Dr. Ru Taeyun had been promoted to Director of Xenopsychological Studies, tasked with helping alien species understand human behavior. His research had become required reading in diplomatic circles across the galaxy. The fundamental difference," he explained to a group of alien ambassadors, "is that humans evolved as both prey and predator. Most of your species evolved as either herbivores on peaceful worlds or as apex predators that never face serious threats." The ambassadors, representing 12 different species, listened intently. Understanding human psychology had become critical for diplomatic survival. Humans spent millions of years being hunted by larger predators while simultaneously hunting smaller prey. This created unique survival instincts. We're protective of our young, suspicious of threats, and capable of extreme violence when cornered. Ambassador Toth of the Vegan Confederation raised a tentacle. "Dr. Ru, how can our species coexist safely with humans?" "Simple," Dr. Ru replied. "Treat human children as you would treat your own most precious offspring. Respect human territorial instincts. Don't mistake human patience for weakness. And remember that humans prefer cooperation but are prepared for conflict." "What if mistakes?" "Airmaid?" asked Representative Kex of the Zelthians. "Acknowledge them immediately, apologize sincerely, and make appropriate compensation. Humans respect honesty and appreciate genuine efforts to make things right." The lessons were being learned across the galaxy. Alien governments had established new departments specifically for human relations. Trade agreements now included human protection clauses. Military alliances were being rewritten to account for humanity's strategic capabilities. Colonel Young Murray toured the captured alien shipyards that had been converted to human use. The facilities were producing a new generation of exploration. Vessels designed for peaceful expansion rather than military conquest. "Ma'am," her chief engineer reported, "the production lines are ahead of schedule. We'll have 12 new colony ships ready for launch next month." "Excellent. What about the defensive systems?" "All human colonies now have standard defensive grids. Not military grade, but sufficient to deter pirates or raiders." Yang nodded. The galaxy was becoming safer for human expansion, but humanity remained vigilant. The lesson of Jiwu's assault was clear. Peace required strength, and strength required preparation. In his private quarters aboard Terra's Wrath, Admiral Park read reports from human colonies across the galaxy. The picture they painted was encouraging. Human children were attending alien schools without fear. Human families were establishing new homes on worlds that had once seemed hostile. Human businesses were forming partnerships with alien corporations on equal terms. Admiral, Captain Bei Wujin entered with the daily intelligence briefing. We're monitoring some interesting developments in the Outer Rim territories. What kind of developments? 3 alien species have requested human assistance in dealing with a piracy problem. They're offering to pay for human military services. Admiral Park smiled. They want to hire human mercenaries? More than that, sir. They want to hire the Earth Defense Forces as contracted security. Full rates, full authority, full respect for human military protocols. The irony wasn't lost on Admiral Park. 6 months ago, aliens had dismissed humans as primitive emotional creatures. Now they were paying premium rates for human military expertise. What's our response? The President has approved limited security contracts. We'll provide protection services while training alien forces in proper defensive tactics. Sure, our people understand we're not conquerors. We're teachers helping others learn to protect themselves. As the months passed, a new pattern emerged. Human military expertise, strategic thinking, and protective instincts were increasingly valued across the galaxy. Species that had once looked down on humans now competed for human alliance and support. The change wasn't just political, it was cultural. Alien children learned about human courage and sacrifice. Alien teachers studied human educational methods. Alien leaders sought human advice on complex problems. Han Jiwu, now 9 years old and fully recovered from his injuries, had become something of a celebrity. His assault had triggered the most significant shift in galactic politics in over 1,000 years. But when reporters asked him about his role in galactic history, the boy always gave the same answer. I just wanted to help with the math problem. Everything else was the grown-ups taking care of me. It was, Admiral Park often reflected, the most accurate summary of the entire conflict. A child had tried to be helpful. Adults had failed to protect him. And humanity had reminded the galaxy. What happened when you threatened a Deathworld species young? 2 years after the Terran Protection Accords, Ambassador Shin Jae-won stood before the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Hall on Neutral Harmony Station. The building itself was a symbol of the new order, designed with human architectural principles that emphasized both beauty and defensive capability. The motion before the assembly, Shin announced to the gathered representatives of 63 species, is the establishment of the Universal Child Protection Protocol. All member species will agree to common standards for the treatment of children, regardless of species origin. The vote was unanimous, not because every species agreed with human values, but because they had learned the consequences of disagreeing. The galaxy had spent 2 years discovering that humans didn't make empty threats. In the observation gallery, Han Jiwoo watched the proceedings with his father. Now 10 years old, the boy had grown into a confident young student whose assault had accidentally reshaped galactic civilization. Dad, he whispered, why do they always vote the same way humans want? Han Minho smiled slightly. Because they've learned that humans keep their promises, both good and bad. Below them, the alien delegates were discussing implementation details. The conversation was polite, respectful, and careful, very different from the arrogant dismissiveness that had characterized alien attitudes toward humanity just 2 years earlier. Representative Kex of the Zelthians stood to address the assembly. His species had suffered the most severe consequences for their treatment of human children, and Kex had worked hard to rebuild relations. The Zelthian Confederation pledges full compliance with the Universal Child Protection Protocol, he announced. We have learned from our mistakes and appreciate the patience shown by human authorities during our transition period. It was a diplomatic way of saying that humanity had given the Zelthians a choice: change their behavior or face military occupation. The Zelthians had chosen wisely. On the bridge of the EDS Terra's Wrath, Admiral Park Sung-jin reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. His ship now served as the flagship of the Galactic Defense Coordination Fleet, a multinational force under human command that provided security for trade routes and civilian populations. "Sir," Captain Lim Seochin reported, "we're receiving a distress call from the Rigel system. Slavers have attacked a civilian transport carrying mixed-species families. Children aboard?" Admiral Park asked immediately, confirmed. 17 children. From 6 different species, including 3 humans. Admiral Park's expression hardened. "Signal the fleet. We deploy immediately." The response was swift and overwhelming. Human ships appeared in the Rigel system within hours, supported by allied vessels from 12 different species. The slavers found themselves facing the combined military might of the galaxy's most feared warriors. The battle was over in 23 minutes. Every slaver ship was either destroyed or captured. The children were rescued unharmed. And the galaxy was reminded once again that threatening children brought immediate consequences. "Sir," Captain Lim reported after the action, "the rescued children are requesting to meet you." Admiral Park found the children in the ship's medical bay, being examined by human doctors while their parents waited anxiously nearby. The 3 human children rushed to him immediately, but what surprised him was that the alien children did the same. "Admiral Park," called a young vegan girl named Zira. "You saved us." "We weren't scared," added an Altarian boy named Tok. "We knew humans would come for us." The complete trust these alien children showed in human protection was remarkable. In just 2 years, humanity had gone from being viewed with suspicion to being seen as the galaxy's protectors. Dr. Ru Taeyun had established the Institute for Interspecies Understanding on Earth, where alien scholars came to study human behavior and psychology. His latest research focused on why human protective instincts had proven so effective at maintaining galactic peace. "The key factor," he explained to his mixed species research team, "is predictability. Humans respond to threats against children with absolute consistency. This makes our behavior easy for other species to understand and accommodate." "But why children specifically?" asked Dr. Vexnara, a Zelthian researcher who had dedicated her career to understanding human motivations. After her species' disastrous first contact with human military forces. "Evolutionary biology," Dr. Ru replied. "Humans evolved in an environment where child mortality was extremely high. Only the most protective groups survived to pass on their genes. This created an instinctive response that's so strong it overrides almost all other considerations, including self-preservation, especially self-preservation. A human parent will face impossible odds to protect their child. A human community will go to war to protect any child. This isn't rational behavior, it's programmed into our species." At the genetic level, the research was being translated into practical diplomatic guidelines used throughout the galaxy. Understanding human psychology had become essential for any species that wanted to maintain peaceful relations. On New Geneva Station, Kim Nari had been promoted to Director of Human Educational Services. She oversaw a network of schools and programs designed to help human children thrive in the galaxy while maintaining their cultural identity. "The challenge," she explained to a conference of alien educators, "is balancing integration with preservation. Human children need to understand galactic civilization, but they also need to understand what makes them human." The alien teachers listened carefully. Teaching human children had become a prestigious assignment, but it required special training and constant supervision. "Human children are naturally curious and innovative," Kim continued. "They'll question your methods, suggest alternatives, and push boundaries. This isn't disrespect, it's how human minds work. Encourage it, don't suppress it." "What if they make mistakes?" asked an Altarian instructor. "Then you help them learn from those mistakes. You don't punish them for being human." The training programs were working. Reports of human children being mistreated had dropped to nearly zero. The few incidents that did occur were handled swiftly and publicly, serving as reminders to anyone who might forget the lessons of the past 2 years, Major Song Ariam commanded. The new Human Exploration Initiative, leading mixed-species crews on missions to discover and colonize new worlds. Her latest assignment was surveying the Kepler 442 system for potential settlement. The fourth planet shows excellent potential for human habitation, she reported to Admiral Park. Gravity is 92% of Earth normal, atmosphere is breathable with minor supplements, and there are no signs of intelligent life. What about our alien partners? Can they settle there too? The Zelthians and vegans would need environmental suits for the high oxygen levels, but it's manageable. The Altarians actually prefer the atmospheric composition. This was the new model for galactic expansion, cooperative colonization, where different species work together to establish new worlds. Humanity's military dominance had created the security necessary for peaceful expansion. The children who would grow up on these new worlds would know a galaxy very different from the one Han Jiwoo had experienced. They would attend schools where their safety was guaranteed by the most powerful military force in galactic history. They would learn alongside alien children who had been taught to respect human nature rather than suppress it. Colonel Yang Mirei toured the rebuilt Altair Prime shipyards, now operating as a joint human-alien facility producing both civilian and military vessels. The cooperation was remarkable. Species that had been traditional enemies were working side by side under human supervision. "Ma'am," her chief engineer reported, "production is exceeding targets by 15%. The mixed crews are actually more efficient than single-species teams." "How so?" "Different species bring different strengths. Altarians are excellent at precision work, vegans are natural logisticians, and Zelthians are gifted engineers. Combined with human innovation and leadership, the results are impressive." Young nodded. This was the unexpected benefit of human dominance. Not just peace, but actual cooperation between species that had never trusted each other before. In his private study on Earth, President Choi Dong-wook reviewed reports from across the galaxy. The transformation had exceeded even his most optimistic predictions. Humanity hadn't just established security for their children, they had fundamentally changed how galactic civilization operated. "Sir," his aide announced, "Chancellor Vrix is requesting a private meeting. He says it's about the 10th anniversary commemorative events." President Choi smiled. The 10th anniversary of the Terran Protection Accords was still 8 years away, but the aliens were already planning celebrations. The event that had started with an assault on a human child was being transformed into a galactic holiday celebrating child protection. "Tell the Chancellor I'll meet with him next week, and remind him that Han Jiwoo should be the guest of honor at any commemorative events." It was fitting. The boy whose assault had triggered humanity's rise to galactic dominance should be recognized for his unintentional role in creating a safer, more just galaxy. As President Choi looked out at the stars, he reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had proven that a species' greatest strength wasn't always their technology or their numbers, sometimes it was Thai. 5 years after the signing of the Terran Protection Accords, Han Jiwoo celebrated his 13th birthday on New Harmony Station, the galaxy's first truly integrated educational facility. The party was attended by children from 19 different species, all studying together under the protection of laws that bore his name. "Make a wish, Jiwoo," said his best friend Kira, a young Zelthian girl whose species had once considered humans primitive. Her presence at his birthday party would have been unthinkable just 5 years earlier. Jiwoo closed his eyes and blew out the candles on his cake. When reporters later asked what he had wished for, he gave the same answer he always gave. That? Kids everywhere can just be kids. It was a simple wish that had inadvertently reshaped galactic civilization. Admiral Park Sung-jin, now Fleet Admiral of the Galactic Defense Union, watched the birthday celebration from the observation deck. At 62, he had become the most respected military leader in galactic history, not for conquering worlds, but for protecting children. "Sir," his aide reported, We're receiving the annual statistics from the Child Protection Bureau. Go ahead. 0 confirmed cases.